All right. Moving on, can I please invite Dr. Pramod Deo, the chief guest for today, to please address us with some opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, again, a round of applause, please.
Mr. V.B. Sant, Director General, National Safety Council, Dr. S.R. Vate, Director, NERI, Dr. Ram Babu, and all the participants in this Eudora. My association with Dr. Vijay Kulkarni goes back to many years. In 93 to 98, when I was in Denmark with the UNEP Center on Energy and Environment, we had taken up a project in Zimbabwe that was how to incorporate environmental issues in energy planning. And that's the time Vijay was representing NERI and we worked together. And since I belong to also Nagpur, that's the time I have seen Anand as a child. And it was really a pleasant surprise when a few days ago, he approached me and he said that this is the thing, will you come for that? So obviously I had no hesitation in accepting that, because apart from that it is a great initiative, but the approach that he has adopted, that itself speaks a lot about his innovative mind. Now I was also advised that I should speak on the role of power sector in climate change and green economy. So my office has given me a speech which you can take it as a read, but what I thought I will talk about is make us aware of how India stands today. If you take the electricity sector or even the energy sector, today we are importing nearly 80 to 85% of our oil. We are importing gas. And coal we are importing, that's because of the various inefficiencies in the coal sector. But we have a huge coal resources, that's what we always talk about. But very interestingly, that integrated energy policy study, which looked 25 years ahead. The study was done in 2007, so it looks at 2031-32. What we find is that if India continues to grow at 8%, of course, maybe that our politicians will see that we don't grow at that rate and we won't face the problem that we are going to face in future. What its study shows is something very alarming. It shows by then we will be importing 95% of oil and we will be importing gas, and most alarming is that 40% of coal will have to be also imported. Only flaw with that study I found was that it sees that the percentage of renewable energy they had taken as only 6%. And the reason was that whatever the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the figures they gave of the potential. Now that potential, as we know, has been highly underestimated, because if you take wind today, wind itself today is 18,000, and that is all the time they have been talking about 48,000 megawatt is the capacity, which obviously needs upward revision. Because a very good example is Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu was supposed to have a potential of less than 5,000, and already you have got a capacity exceeding 6,000 megawatt. So obviously we need to relook at it. There are different estimates. I don't want to get into that. But what I'm expecting is that the share of the renewable has to increase. So in the context of the climate change, we have got a National Action Plan on Climate Change, which says that 2010 onwards, we will be adding 1% green energy every year. We have more or less achieved that in the first year, because we have today. Of course, when again I talk about the integrated energy policy, we have to remember we are talking about the efficient energy use scenario, means production and also use. Then only we are talking of these importing. So for us, climate change and the green economy is not something that which we have the important driving thing. Even the energy security becomes the paramount concern, and we should always remember that we need to increase the share of green energy for the sheer sustainability, and that's something which is unavoidable. And in this context, India's electricity sector is something gives a picture of great inefficiency, because when we talk about generation of energy, we are doing quite well there, because we can find that the many of the power plants, their efficiency is fairly high. And what we do is, as a regulatory, when we are deciding normative-based tariff, we have been trying to improve the standards. The heat rates has been that we keep raising the bar, you can say. Also the reduction in the secondary fuel oil consumption and auxiliary consumption, all those things are factored in. And of course, the most important thing is now we have gone for competitive bidding. And the competition always brings in more efficient technology. And another important thing is all the 500 megawatt and big power plants, they have to be based on supercritical technology. That itself gives you great benefit. And now the new scheme of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, PAT, that itself has covered all the coal-based thermal power plants. So efficiency will become the primary concern there. And those who are not efficient, they will have to buy these energy efficiency certificates. So that's a very good signal. And in fact, CRC was involved in fixing the efficiency standards for the thermal power plants. So that is at a generation thing. As far as the transmission, I don't think we have to really worry about, because very loosely we talk about T&D losses. Their transmission and distribution losses. In fact, the transmission losses are something where there is no possible of any kind of a pilferage. It is basically the question is that how efficient technology is used. And we are already now moving to from what used to be the standard, this thing was the backbone of the transmission network was 400 kV. Now we have moved to 765 and even 1200. So that itself gives you the advantage in terms of, so you can take it is not more than 3%. Maximum, some places will be 4% are the transmission losses. So we should not talk about transmission losses. It should be only the distribution losses. And there also the collection efficiency comes. So the new term that we use is AT&C losses, aggregate technical and commercial losses. Because the argument given is that's what really any distribution company in business recovers. So that's what we should look at. Now there the picture is very dismal. We have been talking, because the main issue is there is, we do not measure electricity that we supply to agriculture. Because of the political reasons, metering of agriculture has been not possible. All the state regulatory commissions under the law have mandated that all new connection must be given based on meters. But in reality, even if you install meters, those will not be measured. So that being the case, when we talk about these distribution losses, it is always a guess estimate. And you will find that nightmare of any state electricity regulator is the distribution company keeps shifting the goal, because they will always manipulate the agriculture losses. So what we have suggested at the forum of regulator, that we should go for random statistical sampling, but most important thing is what Gujarat has done seems to be may not be economically the optimal, but seems to be the second best optimal solution in Indian context. That is the separation of agriculture feeder. Maharashtra has also done more or less completed that work. The Andhra is doing it. So most of the major states. So that itself guarantees that you know how much is being consumed in agriculture, and then you can also take measures this thing. Also there is a program called Revised APDRP. That is a there was earlier program, APDRP was Accelerated Power Reform and Development Program. So now we have called it revised this thing. Under that, one of the realities we have, I think, accepted that nothing much can be done in rural areas because of the agriculture consumption cannot be metered. So let us now just focus on urban and semi-urban areas. And the idea there is that it has two phases. Phase one is where we will have a consumer indexing done using IT methods, so that we will know which consumers are connected to a distribution transformer. And since the distribution transformer meter readings are something which cannot be manipulated, and then you can take all the bills that you are sending, so you would know how much electricity has been supplied. So we are dealing something very basic, but that itself we are. So once that happens, we will have on one side the urban areas would have been taken care in rural. But that continues to be a thing, and the reason for that is all the state utilities are owned by government, and we have a very good example of what happened in Delhi. In Delhi, it was the public-private partnership model. When they privatized and gave 51% to private, the losses came down from 55% to now they are less than 15%. And that has happened because of the sheer governance issue, management issue. Now, obviously, politically, I don't think the privatization is acceptable. Delhi, it could be done. The reason was that Delhi has no agriculture consumption, it being a completely urban city. And the second was that in Delhi, also there was a political will shown by the chief minister, who has been rewarded twice by the electorate. So this is also a very good example for a politician to see what happens when you do things efficiently. So in this context, the model seems to be that we should go for franchisee. In the franchisee, you take up a very difficult area, like Bhiwandi is a very good example. Bhiwandi also had losses of 60%. And once the Torrent won that contract, it had been brought to less than 20%. And this is a completely remarkable performance. So what we are recommending today is a franchisee model for all the difficult areas. Now, Agra is another case where it has been also given on franchisee basis. So this is as far as the chain comes of power generation and distribution and goes to the thing. Of course, now once it comes to the consumer end, then comes into more difficult areas, what we call as the demand side management, where it is a partnership between utility and consumer. And it has been very difficult to find the utilities be getting interested in that. Interestingly, the private utilities, because private sector's share today in India in distribution is only 13%. So these are the major cities, and you will find that Mumbai is one of them. There the utilities are interested because one reason is that electricity prices are going up. There is a shortage of electricity. So even if you want to do a better service, that DSM becomes something very important. One very good example is that distribution of energy efficient lamps. That's something which was done here by Reliance Infra, and that succeeded. The similar thing was attempted by MSEDCL in Nasik, and the program was a complete failure. Basically, it became a program of procurement. And I think everyone is very fond of procurement, but actually the distribution, wrong targeting. So those are the various issues which come with demand side management. So that is one area which one will have to focus. So I will not deal too much again on the demand side management. We have prepared a model guidelines how the demand side management program should be there, how it should be a partnership. And the third most important area is the share of renewable energy. And for that, the Electricity Act has given us a great support. As a state regulator, you are expected to fix the renewable purchase obligation. That means that each distribution company has to procure certain percentage of the green energy which has been already decided. So the trajectory is given. Now you will be surprised that now today in Mumbai you are consuming 6% green energy, because the target given by MERC is 6% and it is increasing every year. So obviously the real challenge comes is that the states which do not have enough green energy, resources, how do they go about it? Because the second thing we have done is also to promote investment in green energy. We have giving them preferential tariff, which is the tariff which covers all the cost, also takes care of the risk. So that gives comfort to the financiers and also the investors. So that being the case, this is slightly more expensive, because more or less we are reaching grid parity with wind energy, which constitutes today 70%. But important thing is that with this wind energy reaching that, still you have to pay slightly higher cost. And also the efficiency of the wind generators is fairly low. It is in the range of 25%, 30% intermittent nature. So all those are the other issues which we'll have to tackle. But the fact remains is that the utilities are reluctant to procure more. Because Tamil Nadu is a very good example, where today the renewable purchase obligation, they have already crossed 11%, they are nearly nearing 12%. So obviously the consumers in Tamil Nadu will be reluctant to buy more green energy and pay a higher cost for that. Whereas if you take city of Delhi, it's only now the regulator has fixed the renewable purchase obligation, and this year the target is 2%. And there is no way Delhi can meet that 2%, because in Delhi, except for municipal solid waste, there will be no other source. And still the solar rooftop program is to take in a big way. So given that, what we did is that we introduced this concept of renewable energy certificate. So what will happen is that Tamil Nadu, any wind developer, he can sell that electricity to Tamil Nadu Electricity Board or the distribution company, and he will be paid last year's average cost of purchase of electricity. And in fact, today Tamil Nadu is facing an acute power shortage, and with the monsoon approaching, already all the wind generators are supporting the grid. So it has come as a big relief. So in fact, in India, that way we are very fortunate. Unlike in the US, our need for electricity and what becomes available from wind really coincide. So now that being the case in Tamil Nadu, what will the wind developer, for 1 megawatt hour, he will get one renewable energy certificate, and that is being traded on our power exchanges. So Delhi distribution companies can buy those certificates. Then another thing is that in the electricity law, it is mentioned consumption of electricity, based on that the renewable purchase obligation has to be fixed, which means it is not only the distribution company, all the captive power generators also have that obligation, so they become obligated entities. And the third one is any open access consumer, because once he becomes an open access consumer, he is not drawing electricity from the distribution company. So that's another important area. So these renewable energy certificates will create a market, and also it gives a signal what the market is willing to pay. And that also will bring in this efficiency, and then we don't have to determine preferential tariff for that. So all these factors are very important. And so that's why we find that today we have out of 200 gigawatt, 2 lakh. There have been, of course, international factors, because there has been a glut and the production is more than the demand. But at least that factors are helping. So given this, India's this thing, what we have to do is state regulatory commission need to fix up the renewable purchase obligation very aggressively. Because unless you do that, the market for renewable energy certificates will not develop. And once that market develops, then naturally the investment will also take place in that. And that's why I thought that I'll give you this broad picture. And because in the context of when we talk about the green economy and also climate change, in the climate change debate, also we have taken a stand which is known, which is quite an understandable stand, because for a country because if we take India, today India per capita consumption of electricity is only 800 units, so which is very low if you compare the world average. So that's the reason why the integrated energy policy, when it looks at 25 years ahead, naturally you will find that the capacity addition from 200,000 megawatt becomes at least 5 times more. It has to double, and once you are doubling that rate, naturally the impact on the environment will be huge. And that's why the share of green energy has to increase, and we have to see how it is integrated. And the last thing about integration comes in Indian conditions, because we have power shortages, we don't have a spinning reserve, because that becomes something very important, because the wind can suddenly die. In that case, the entire grid gets threatened. Countries you have spinning reserve, but given the shortages, we don't have spinning reserve. So we need to think of the ways how to supplement that. We need to have some peaking power, which will we need to develop ancillary market. And most important is that we'll have to also develop grid, because that is the third thing which regulatory commissions are mandated to do, to ensure grid connectivity for this. And that grid connectivity, which means that we have undertaken a study, and Power Grid has completed that, because we will find that the wind resources are in south. On the west, we have solar, Rajasthan, Gujarat. So if we have to evacuate that power, and if we have to feed it into the national grid, then we need to have a strengthened transmission network. And for that, as you know that in the last year's budget, Finance Minister has introduced kind of a carbon tax on coal. For each ton of coal, you have to pay $1. And with that money, the Clean Energy Fund, we are hoping to utilize that Clean Energy Fund for the viability gap funding for establishing this transmission network. So with that, it should be possible to have an integration of renewable energy into the grid. So I think that is something, the message is very clear. That's what we need to do. And I again thank Anand for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. To me, Lensflare is so revolutionary and innovative in approach because we have gathered support from over 17,000 youngsters within a span of about 2 months across the country who absolutely love this concept. And that gives us great confidence in taking Lensflare ahead. As a metaphor to that support and that spirit of artists coming together, we have prepared what is called the Book of Harmony. The Book of Harmony is a beautiful photo book comprising of remarkable pictures on nature which are contributed by young, not so professional students like us. And may I please request Dr. Pramod Deo and other dignitaries to release the Book of Harmony on the occasion of Eudora 2012. Please, sir.